Good afternoon, everybody. So while I'm out here playing fetch with my dog, his name is Gizmo, and he loves his ball, I thought I'd talk about my next video. So the point of today's video kind of ties into my first one, which is knowing what you're looking for when you're going to buy a computer and making sure that you don't get oversold. There will be salesmen that try to push things that you won't need to make extra money, which is what their job is. They're not failing miserably at life. They're just doing what they're supposed to be doing without a whole lot of regard for you. There are a lot of retailers that, or I shouldn't say retailers, but salesmen that do want you genuinely to get a good product. They want you to get what you need. It'll serve your purpose. But what a lot of people don't understand is that while it does meet your purpose, they're selling you things that you're never really going to take advantage of. So, starting off, I've talked before about the processors of computers. My way of looking at it is the processor is kind of like the brain. You want to have a good brain. But you also want to have a good brain that works for what you need it to be. You don't want to be a, mathematician, and then your whole career is based on geography. Something like that. I don't know. But my point is, for the Intel side of things, Intel processors are generally speaking the ones most people will hear about. AMD is another brand, and AMDs are perfectly good. The newer ones are fantastic, even for gaming. But Intel, you'll have like the i3, the i5, the i7, even the i9 is one that's out now. The more powerful the processor, the more applications, the more systems, the tougher the work it can do. If you're into things like coding or rendering 3D models, things that are sophisticated that require a lot of processing power, you'll want to go for like the i9 or the i7. Gizmo likes to put his ball underneath the chair. If, on the other hand, you're just looking to do, say, like video games, you're looking to play some games. I hinted before that you want a good graphics card. That's going to be what's going to stress out your system the most. But you also want to have a decent processor. But really, for any of the modern titles, even the good ones, like the AAA, there's competitions all over the country. People make millions of dollars playing them, those types of games. You don't really need anything more than the i5, which will run you a lot less than like an i7 or an i9. Those types of games aren't very heavy in terms of processor use, but they are heavy on the graphics card, which is why you want that. Now, if you're just going to be doing things like emails, word processing, kind of like work from home stuff without doing anything too intense, you'd be perfectly fine with like an i3, or they even make like Intel Celeron, different like mobile processors that aren't very powerful at all, but they will work for perfectly fine with what you need. So there's a little tip in terms of making sure that you don't get oversold with the processors. Now, RAM, random access memory. RAM is something that is important. Basically, the more RAM you have, the more, look at it as like endurance that your computer can do, that your computer has. A computer with 8 gigs of RAM will be able to run more applications at the same time, have more windows open in your internet browser at the same time than a computer that has 4 gigabytes of RAM. If you're doing like gaming or like the 3D rendering or coding, you'll be able to process more things at one time with more RAM. You'll see a lot of video editors, 3D modelers, those types of people. They'll have systems that have 32, 64 gigabytes of RAM, which is crazy, but they need that. It helps them do their job a lot smoother and a lot more efficient. For gaming, even like the more advanced gaming, things like that, 16 gigs of RAM is pretty fair. I think you'd be hard-pressed nowadays to find anything with less than 8 gigabytes of RAM. And if you did in a laptop, just don't buy it. it won't be worth it. You can get a good laptop for a few $100s. That'll have at least 8 gigs of RAM. And again, for your basic word processing, work from home, everyday tasks, 8 gigs of RAM will work you out just fine. There's nothing that you need more than that. Now, my favorite lesson is one that I learned the hard way when I was getting into this. When I've always been interested and somewhat knowledgeable with computers, but years ago I had the fortunate opportunity to basically custom design my dream computer. This was quite a while ago, and going through the website, you could pick out the individual parts that you want. What kind of processor do you want? What kind of cooling do you want for it? Do you want it to light up? Do you want it to glow? Do you want it to do fancy things like that? Anything. So, knowing a lot about processors, knowing about RAM, knowing the graphics cards and things like that, picked out the state-of-the-art, not necessarily the most expensive, because that's not always going to be the best thing that works for you, but very good, very solid equipment. I bought all that. The one thing I didn't know much about back then, which bit me in the butt later on, was motherboard. Now, look at the motherboard as like the central nervous system. The motherboard is what connects all the other devices that you have in the computer together. The processor, the graphics card, the hard drives, all that is connected through the motherboard. So you can have the best processor, you can have the best graphics card, and best of everything, but as you probably guessed, if you have a pretty bad motherboard, then all that will kind of be for naught, because it'll crash, it'll die on you, it'll have errors, and you'll be stuck with a paperweight unless you get a new motherboard. And that's what I learned. I had all this great equipment, all these great things, but the motherboard I had, when I did my research about why my computer wasn't working as it should have, the motherboard had been discontinued. It was a product that the company said isn't viable anymore, and they stopped carrying it after just a couple years. So I learned my lesson there. I've learned since then, do a lot of research, make sure that you're buying what you want to buy, what you need to buy, because again, not everything's going to be compatible with everything else. But yeah, what else is good to know about not being oversold? Just if you're dealing with like a salesman, something like that, stick to what you need. There is an extent of, one day I think I'm going to get more involved in video editing or photography or something like that. If you do see that realistically coming up in your future, then future-proof. Get a system that will accommodate that. If it spends a little more money on something like that, you'll be happy, because you'll need to go out and buy a whole new computer and potentially learn all kinds of new software just to get that to work. Now, at the same time, if you're, coming to grips with the fact that your wildest dreams of becoming a fashion designer is not going to pan out, then you don't necessarily need to splurge on that kind of a system. So there's my 2 cents, Slated Odin's 2 cents. Thanks for watching. I hope everybody out there is doing good. I hope everyone's staying as safe as possible. Here in sunny Arizona, things are going okay. Nothing's on lockdown yet. The nearest big town, Tucson, the mayor did declare, I guess, a lockdown quarantine yesterday. Hasn't affected us at all yet, but we'll see what's coming down the pipe. There's more people getting infected every day. It's a scary world right now, but try to stay positive, and again, take whatever measures that you're able to stay safe. And since a lot of people are working from home now, try to enjoy my content. And if you have suggestions for any future videos, absolutely, please leave them in a suggestion or leave them in the comments below. I do take them seriously. I have a lot of people that do message me wanting to see different things, and I'm going to get to those as expeditiously as possible. So until then, take care, stay safe, peace.